Well, welcome. This is our video series. I'm talking to folks that sit in the pew on an average Sunday morning. They have real stories that are not only compelling, but their stories are moments of faith, episodes of faith. And so this is Bob Tran. Bob is a member of First Lutheran, and Bob, you were president of the congregation when I came here.
Yes, I was.
That was a good ride. 2 years, right?
Yes,
2 years.
I was. Yep.
And I got to know somebody of gentle humor and warmth, and I'm glad to be able to count you as friend.
Well, thank you very much.
And of course, among the things that happened early on was you said, I have a story to tell.
Right.
And you came in my office one day, and we must have sat there for an hour. And I mean, I was just jaw dropped in terms of what you had to say and how you came to America. And I'd love for you to share some of that with these folks today.
After the Vietnam fall under the communists in April 30, 1975, my dad was with the American side, so therefore my mom know that we're gonna have a really hard time, especially me being a boy and the oldest one. The futures look rather gloomy. There's no hopes at all. So therefore, she planned for me to escape out of Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And so December 1979, on December 28, 1979, that's when I left Vietnam. Mm-hmm. We got out in this little boat and we traveled to the South China Sea, and I was one of very, very fortunate individual that made it to land. Yeah. And I ended up in Thailand refugee camp there. Uh-huh. I stayed in Thailand for 4 months. Okay. And through all that 4 months, they do paperwork, and I end up with finding the foster family for me to stay with when I came to America. So April 28, 1980, I came to America and lived with a foster family in Lake Mills, Iowa.
You know these dates, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you got them burned in, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
You know, I remember when we talked about this, you'd mentioned that your dad was on the American side, but that also meant that he was a target. And that meant it was danger for all of you, right?
Yes, yes.
And what happened to your dad along the way?
My dad got killed. My dad died in, I want to say, 73.
Okay.
That's when my dad died.
Really?
I'm not for sure what day. I was really young, so therefore I didn't really remember it. But I know he died. According to my uncle, he got assassinated, but we never proved it, and he died.
Yeah, they just came and told you he drowned in a river.
Right, yes.
Yeah. But there were a lot of people that were on the American side that met unfortunate accidents, right?
There you go. Yep.
Yeah. And remind me, how old were you in 79 then when you got on this boat?
I was 14 years old.
14 years old. And you were the only one in your family?
Yes, I was the only one in my family because at the time there are quite a few things that get involved in it. Number one, it costs a lot to try to escape out of Vietnam. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not only that, but if I didn't make it, I can always have a place to go back to.
Sure.
So therefore, a lot of uncertainty at that time. All my mom ever know is she wanted me to get out of Vietnam and to try to find a future. Yeah, that's all she knows. Yeah. She don't know anything more than that. Yeah. And I said that was between 75 to 79 or even into the 80. There's a lot of Vietnamese try to escape out of Vietnam as a political refugee, but very few that was successful.
Actually got it done.
That's right. Yeah. So I consider myself very fortunate. Yeah. By the grace of God, I'm sitting here and share the story with our audience right now.
Absolutely.
So there are lots of unknown.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
fear of the unknowns. All she ever know is she wanted me to go find the future,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
Whatever that future mean.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but that's all she say. One of the things that she drilled into me is when if I do, wherever I end up, it doesn't matter. Make sure I get an education. That's all she wanted.
My goodness, that's crazy.
Nice.
And so you had this home in Vietnam, and it was a loving home with a mother and a
Right.
family. You had a brother, right?
I have two brothers.
You have two brothers.
Yep.
Is one of them still in Vietnam, or are they
Yeah,
all?
one of them is currently in Vietnam right now, and one of them here in California.
California. That's right. I remember that. But you were the only one who left,
At that time, yes.
and you left this place where you knew you were loved, and it was your home, and it's all you ever knew, and you went out on an ocean
Yes.
with no one. And you're
With
14 years old.
115 other people that I do not know.
That's right. There we go.
So we're in this little boat for 116 of us in this little boat, and we just go. And wherever we end up, we end up. And again, by the grace of God, we end up on land in Thailand, and
Yep.
and then
And the journey itself was not easy. I remember you mentioning that that there were pirates.
yes.
What happened there?
Well, again, it just depends how you look at the situation. We got robbed by pirates. I believe it was 3 times, but each time these are not really real pirates. They no more than fishermen.
Okay.
They happen to caught us, they rob us. They fed us, and they let us go.
Wow.
Okay?
So basically, they wanted whatever you had that was of material value,
Gold.
but then they took care of it.
Gold.
Yeah,
That's
gold.
what they
Okay,
want.
sure,
Yes.
sure.
They want
Yeah.
24 karat gold.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
And yes, they did fee us. There's a couple times we were joking. That's a one heck of an expensive meal that we had. and so, but again, we are fortunate enough because these are not. They don't do pirating for a living.
Right.
If I know some boats that was less fortunate than my boat, they met the real pirates that do pirating for a living. They would rob you, they would sunk your boat, and they would take everybody on this island, and especially the female, they have their way with the female.
Oh my goodness.
And if anybody argue or fight with them, they kill you.
My goodness. And you were fortunate not to get into that.
That's right. That's right.
Wow. I had no idea. I don't remember that from the story. But yeah.
Again, we got robbed, but yet.
Yeah. You had friendly pilots.
There you go. You can try that, yeah.
Oh boy.
That's an oxymoron.
Yeah, yeah.
Friendly pirate.
A dear friend of mine, his name is Tom Lovan, and Tom is a pastor in Sioux City. He's at my home church, and Tom escaped through Cambodia.
Sure.
He and his family walked through Cambodia, and is that a story as well? But you went the other way. You went south on the South China Sea.
South China Sea.
Yep, South China,
Yes.
and then down to Thailand is where you landed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
very good.
And again, at the time, I truly believe that we don't really know where we're going to end up. The only thing that we hope that we can find land. Now, along the Southeast Asia, the South China Sea there, they set up many places. For example, some people will end up in Thailand, others end up in Malaysia, Indonesia,
Sure.
Philippines,
Yep.
Hong Kong.
Yep. Wherever the boat finds land.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And some of them got really lucky. They made it all the way to Australia.
Really?
Very few,
Oh my.
but
Yeah.
some did.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's just amazing, Bob. So, so you were in a refugee camp in Thailand for 4 months.
Yes.
And then, how did you get contacted, and how did you land in north central Iowa?
Well, two Lutheran social service that they found me a foster family.
Yeah.
And this foster family willing to take me in. And now looking back, I understand more. Doing that 4 months, do all the paperwork and all that stuff, and then yes, before I can come here, they have to find me a family, and
Sure.
I was fortunate enough to have a family that willing to open their home for me, and that's how I end up in Lake Mills, Iowa,
Sure.
and that's how I became a Lutheran.
Is that right?
Yes.
Because of Lutheran Social Services?
Because of Lutheran Social Service, yes.
And the family that you were with, were they also Lutheran?
Yes, they are.
They were, okay,
Yes, they
very
are.
good, very good. So your first home church, Christian church then was up
Salem Lutheran Church in Lake Mills.
in Lake Mills,
Yes.
my goodness.
Yep.
And
And that's where I learned the Bible. I went to confirmation. I got baptized there.
Wow.
And all that.
That's really.
And I got confirmed there too, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. And so you had a home,
Yes.
and on the promise of a better life, your mom put you on a boat at great personal risk to you, and great risk to her, because she was literally setting her oldest son adrift and had no idea if it would ever work.
Right.
And you left your home, you left the comfort of that to come for a better place. Yeah, because you have made this your home, and I mean, Algona wouldn't be the same without Bob Tran. I mean, I'm serious about that, Bob. I am serious about that. You've made an impact here, and because some people in the United States showed you kindness.
Oh, absolutely. I met some wonderful people. I always think of, it doesn't matter who I run across to, I always learn something. Either I learn to do the right thing by their example, or I learn not to do the right thing because of their example as well. So,
Oh, so tell me a little bit about, maybe for you, how that connects with your faith, this journey.
well, I learned one thing is there's always a greater power out there. God works in His miracle way.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm the testimony of that. You know,
Yeah.
I would never thought that at the age of 14 that I left my mom
Yeah.
and where I end up now, and my faith it grows stronger and stronger each day. Even nowadays, every day you face a challenge, and sometimes I just go out on my own. I go to the river, I go to the lake.
Yep.
As you know, I love fishing.
Yes.
And honestly, sometimes I don't care if I catch any fish or not. I'm out there spending time with God and have a conversation.
Yep.
Say lots of prayer.
Yep.
Have lots of faith.
Yep.
Because life is not always rosy.
Yeah.
There's lots of peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
And we go through it. And the biggest thing that I learned myself personally, that when you get to the peak, that's mean the good time, everything is rosy. Sometimes we tend to forget
Yep.
about God.
Yep.
And I always try to remind me, when I get to that point, I make sure I say, hey, thank you for taking care of me.
Yeah.
You know.
And you know, that word "thank you," when I think of you and the conversations we've had, what I know about you is that your life has been lived in gratitude and thankfulness. Well, Bob, thanks for doing this, and I'm so looking forward to doing this for the congregation with a sermon in the next few weeks, and really appreciate you taking the time to
Well,
come in.
thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share my story.
Thank you very much, Bob. By the way, Bob, my father-in-law, was also a fisherman, and he always said it's better to be out fishing thinking about church than to be in church thinking about fishing. So it was the spring of 1975, and I remember every night coming home, sitting down to supper with my parents and my grandmother and my brother, and we would have the news on. And we were watching footage from Vietnam.
And some of you probably remember this, some of you don't, I know. But it was a disaster. I mean, people were running every place. It was pell-mell. It was just crazy. Folks were literally hanging off of helicopter skids. Do you remember this? As the helicopters are taking off off the top of buildings, hanging onto skids in hopes that they could escape. There's gunfire everywhere. People are in anguish and they are seriously concerned, as we were for them. We were concerned for them because we knew that many of those people that we saw on TV probably wouldn't survive if they didn't leave. That's what I remember about it. It was an unmitigated, unholy mess. I had a personal interest in this as well, because in the spring of '75, I was 17 years old and a junior in high school. And in 11 short months, there was a lottery scheduled for the draft. And it would have been my lottery. And however that came out could have very easily changed the entire course of my life, because I could have been drafted. I could have been sent over to Bob. I could have been shot, could have been killed, could have come home like so many did, changed forever. That lottery didn't happen because of what was happening on the television in '75. And I remember thinking more than once, breathing a sigh of relief and thinking, well, I don't have to think about Vietnam again. Little did I know that the events of the spring of '75 would bring me personally so many rich blessings. So many. You heard me talk about Tom Levon. Tom is a dear friend of mine. He was the first pastor of the Southeast Asian Ministry in Storm Lake. I was one of his seminary professors. And to this day, and Tom has since moved to Sioux City. He helped care for my mom in the last days of her life. And then I also have Bob Tran. And the way he's touched and changed my life and so many lives around here. And so Bob's story, and by the way, Bob, this is not about you. It is about Jesus, but it's not about you. Because as I listened to this, I heard another theme and then I started reading the Bible verses, and I thought, oh my goodness, there's a real parallel here. This is about your mom. Okay? So Mom is seeing what's going on. It's 4 years after '75, and the communists are in place, and the new government's in place, and it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. But let me tell you something. That what she was proposing was she had a 14-year-old son, the oldest of all of them, and he lived in a reasonably comfortable place, even though it was a dangerous place at the time. I mean, it's familiar, right? There's family and friends and neighbors all around that you know. You know the clothes that you wear. You know the food that you eat. You know the language that you speak, and Bob has told me that when he got on that boat, he didn't speak a word of English. Not one. So in a lot of ways, even though it was dangerous, it was also reasonably comfortable. Because you can just continue doing what you're doing in hopes that you don't get hurt. Right? And as it turns out, Bob's family didn't get hurt after Dad died. Everybody else made it fine. By contrast, Mom is thinking about taking a 14-year-old boy and setting him adrift on the South China Sea. Would you please put up this picture? On a boat that looks very much like this. Now, I measured the boat this morning using the people on the boat. I'm guessing it's no more than 50 feet long. And there were 116 people, complete strangers to Bob, on that boat. 115 plus Bob. Can you imagine this? That's like a cork on Lake Okoboji. And there's no guarantees. There's no promises. There is a promise, but there's no guarantees. There's nothing that says that the thing isn't going to sink in some big waves. There's nothing that says that the bad pirates, not the friendly pirates, weren't going to get hold of you, and that would have been disastrous. There's nothing that says that he wouldn't just disappear from the face of the planet and be lost forever. And I mean, she could have kept him home, right? At least if he was home, she could protect him and possibly even save him. But she let him go. She set him loose. In a way, it was almost like a sacrifice, letting go of your oldest son. And in so many ways, because of all the ways that it was comfortable and all the ways that she could keep an eye on him at home, in so many ways, this made absolutely no sense whatsoever. But she did it. She did it for the hope and promise of something that was to her completely unseen. She didn't even know where he would land. If he would land in Thailand, if he would land in Australia, if he'd end up living in Australia, United States, England, who knows? I mean, they were sent to the four winds. She didn't know where he was going to go. She had no clue. But she let him go. She set him loose. She put on the altar the most precious thing that she had in the hopes for a better country, a new homeland that would bring promise and life. I'd like to stop there and let's sing.
Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. See on the portals, he's waiting and watching, watching for you and for me. Come home, come home, come home. You who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come home.
Let me tell you a little something about the music this morning. We went through everybody to try to find singers, and the last no came at about 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. And so so Jill agreed to come in and play piano, and Shelley and Tatum are singing, and yeah, please, yeah. Thank you all very much, and it's beautiful today. Thank you. When I was working on this, and immediately, actually, there was part of the video you didn't see, I had an idea as Bob's talking about Hebrews chapter 11. Don't go there yet. Don't go there yet. Because it's a story about, that's called the faith chapter. And it's one of the most famous chapters in the Bible. It starts with, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. And then the chapter goes on to list off all of these Old Testament characters who have lived and walked by faith. There's Enoch, who walked till he couldn't be found anymore. There's Abraham and Sarah, who, and this is the good one for us, who leave a comfortable place to go to a homeland that's not theirs. There's Moses. And then it says all of these people, they all died without having seen that homeland. But they were looking for a different place, a better country. And it is not an earthly country. It is a country that God has prepared for them. And so, obviously, I mean, that just makes perfect sense. Abraham, Sarah, they leave Haran. They have a family there. They have a life established there. They know the language. They know the food. They don't have to learn how to make donuts or eat pizza or anything like that. They had it all down. And God called them to a different way and said that you're going to have a family. You're going to have a big family. And Abraham got up, and on the assurance of things hoped for, on the conviction of things not seen, Abraham and Sarah left for that better country. A lot like what happened with Bob. And I thought that's where the sermon was going, until I read on a little bit. Would you please put this up? Everyone read this with me, okay? This is right after all that homeland stuff, okay? Abraham, read it with me, please. Abraham was ready to sacrifice his only son, Isaac, even though God told him that Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted. Talk about unseen things. Talk about the conviction of things hoped for. This is the personification of that. And you all know the story from the book of Genesis that's being re-recorded here. Please keep that up if you would. Excuse me. They left a comfortable place to go to a new homeland. They have a child, and this child is the promise that Abraham and Sarah have been given by God, that they will live for an eternity, that they will be the parents of an entire people called God's people. And now they're being asked to sacrifice this son, to give him up, to let him go. And Abraham does it. He has the knife right up here, ready to roll. He's willing to give up everything in the hopes of unseen things. It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, there he lays, bound up on an altar, ready to be sacrificed, ready to be let go, ready to be released. And this boy is the promise that Abraham and Sarah will parent a nation called God's people. Makes no sense. And yet without that story, none of us are here. Let me say that again. Without that story, without Abraham releasing his son, letting him go, sacrificing him, none of us are here. The nation of people called God's own happened through this story. And of course, as you know, the same is true with Jesus, even more so. God lets him go. God gives him up. God sacrifices him. His one that he loves, his only son. And through that, all of us have eternal life. Great gifts that otherwise wouldn't come our way. All through a giving up. All through a letting go. Little did I know that the events of the spring of 1975 would bring me such gifts. Tom Levon, my friend Bob. Bob, by hook and by crook, lands in Lake Mills. Lake Mills, Iowa, from Vietnam. How does that happen? He goes to school. He goes to college. Waldorf, right? Goes to college. He gets a job. He gets married. And now we have these two gifts called Caitlin and Andrew. He makes the best donut holes in the world. And I'm guessing, Bob, that when you were 14, you had not a clue as to what a donut hole was. He's touched so many lives, and all because, not because of Bob, all because a mother was willing to let him go, was willing to give him up, was willing to take him from a place of relative comfort and safety where she could watch him and take care of him and possibly save him from disaster, and put him on a 50-foot boat with 115 strangers and set him off on the South China Sea where there are absolutely no guarantees, just the hope that maybe he'll land someplace where there is land and maybe someone will find him and will take him in. I mean, that's what it was, folks. And Bob was on the sea for 7 days, and Mom, it took a period of months before she found out his fate. I mean, can you imagine that? Waving goodbye, hugging your child, putting him on this boat, and not ever knowing if you're ever going to hear about him again. That's what she did. That's the love. A love so great that it releases the most beloved thing in your life in the hopes of a better country, in the hopes of a heavenly homeland. And now I'm wondering about all of you, and myself as well, and all of our very comfortable, secure lives. And I'm wondering if there aren't places in your life, people in your lives, or maybe I should say people that aren't in your lives, but you see them every day, that could become for you a journey, a homeland, a better country than the comfortable one you have right now. I know for me personally that has happened more times than I can count. And not because I'm great at anything, but just because God's placed some cool things in front of me. God placed Steve Rowe in front of me. And Steve said, you know, I got this idea. I'm going to mortgage my house, close my business, sell my Humvee. At that time they were big. I'm going to use all the money to go buy a beaten up old building so I can house homeless guys. Beacon of hope. He said, you want to help? All of a sudden I'm on a journey that I never expected. And the people that I've met along the way changed my life. I mean, I thought I was going to help a bunch of homeless guys. And what happens? They changed me. They helped me. How about you folks? Is there a journey that's right in front of you, that walks by you every day, that you see passing each other in the hall of the school? Is there somebody like that? Is there something like that? That if you were just to open your eyes for a moment and listen carefully, that God might be calling you to a different homeland, to a heavenly home that is not of this world, but will bring you to a place of rest and peace and new life. Come home. Come home.